Breaking tonight, new questions emerging about whether the United States is heading for an armed showdown with Russia as Moscow starts giving the orders and dropping bombs in the Middle East. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. Like a crisis from the Cold War, what started with a tense United Nations meeting on Monday has escalated into a day of dramatic breaking news from Washington, Syria, and Moscow. Earlier today, say U.S. officials, a three-star Russian general walked into the U.S. embassy in Baghdad, Iraq, and told us we had an hour to get our people and our jets out of Syria, period. Sure enough, within an hour, Russian fighter jets were carrying out airstrikes in Syria on what they claimed was ISIS, but now we know different. With Washington in full scramble and warnings about possible military accidents between the U.S. and Russia, Secretary of State John Kerry addressed the UN Security Council at noon, saying the Obama administration supported the effort as long as Russia was attacking just the Islamic State terrorists. But late this afternoon, we learned that was not what was happening. Instead, the Russians may have targeted the one group of folks, the one group of folks in Syria that America actually supports. And they reportedly killed a couple of dozen civilians, including children, in the process. The U.S. Defense Secretary said it was, quote, unprofessional. Then, just hours ago, the administration sent out Secretary of State John Kerry, this time appearing with his Russian counterpart, to say, well, they had had a constructive meeting about our, quote, need for clarity, agreeing that, quote, we have a lot of work to do. As the crisis unfolds, we have tonight with us Senator Marco Rubio. He predicted this exact scenario 2 weeks ago. Also, former White House press secretary and co-host of The Five, Dana Perino, is here on how the Russians managed to pull this off and embarrass the United States, according to many. But we begin with retired four-star General Jack Keane, who is vice chief of staff for the U.S. Army and is the current chairman at the Institute for the Study of War. General, thank you for being with us tonight.
Glad to be here, Megyn.
How bad is this? Put this in perspective.
Well, frankly, we have once again Putin, whose economy is in a tank, whose military is no match for the United States, who has outmaneuvered and outbluffed the president. He knows that the president will do nothing but verbal condemnation. What he's counting on is the president's predictable fear of escalation and fear of confrontation. This is a game changer. It's significant because what Putin is doing is changing the strategic shift in the Middle East in terms of the balance of power, in terms of the U.S. losing influence and Putin gaining influence of it. So it is a big deal, Megyn.
What we learned today is that they may say that they're going after ISIS, but they're not going after ISIS. And if you look at the map that you guys put together, this isn't your exact, but the green areas on this map are ISIS controlled. See the little red things? That's where the Russians struck. Nowhere near the green areas. They're not striking the ISIS-controlled areas. They're striking areas within the Assad-controlled area that are frequented by the rebels, by the people we support, General.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Listen, the reason for Putin being here with his limited military capability is the fact that the rebels have been putting pressure on Assad, particularly Jabhat al-Nusra, from Aleppo to Damascus in that corridor there.
Hold on. Nobody understood what you just said. Say that in plain English.
The corridor north of Damascus that goes all the way up to the northern border with Syria and Turkey, the rebels have been putting huge pressure on that corridor. It's road networks, and they've taken control of it. And this has been happening gradually for a year. And the Iranians went up to see Putin and told him, listen, situation's getting worse for Assad. He's also losing some political support from the Alawites. We've got to do something. Here comes Putin to do something. So that's what he's focused on. The false narrative, Megyn, so our audience understands it, is ISIS. ISIS is not why he's there. Now, eventually, will he attack some ISIS targets out in the Northeast? Likely. But the reason he's there and the focus of his effort will be to sustain the Assad regime in power. That gives him the foothold in the Middle East, and he desperately cannot lose that.
Who we hate and who Obama has said has got to go, but he said that back in 2012. He hasn't gone. Let me ask you this. What is the behind-the-scenes reaction at the Pentagon to what happened today?
Well, the Pentagon has been very frustrated for a long time. And, what Secretary Kerry did today, his conciliatory effort towards the Russians, makes no sense to me. What should have been said to the Russians. After all, they never coordinated any of this movement into Syria with us. They actually flew their fighters underneath their large cargo airplanes so that no one would pick up on radar. What should have been said today to him is, we're not having a coordination meeting. What we're going to do is we're going to fly when we want, where we want, and we do what we want. And what you should be prepared for is to avoid confrontation and stay out of the area. If you don't stay out of the area, then expect confrontation. We have got to assert ourselves. We're here to destroy ISIS, and we've got to get about doing that. And we all know the strategy is not right, and that's got to change. But there's so much we can do to assert ourselves and make certain that we're able to accomplish our mission and put Russia back on its heels where it needs to be.
It's a very provocative move by Putin. Is this how much stress does this create between our relationship with Putin and with Russia?
Well, I just think it's added to his shenanigans back in 2013 when he created this masquerade of pulling the weapons out, the chemical weapons out of Syria. We've left production capability there. We've left weapons. It's added to Crimea. It's added to the Ukraine. This is another shoe that has dropped. Putin has had a different relationship with us for some time. We haven't made up our mind that this relationship has fundamentally changed.
General, always great getting your perspective. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's good seeing you, Megyn.